Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 100 Pictures of Honey, December version of 2023. I was just telling our readers and our audience off camera that this will be the end of the second year of the series. Next year, the series is going to look a little bit different. We're going to have fewer readings, but more other things. Judy just said, miss those prompt nights. Judy, some of those are going to come back as a part of the series, and also some interviews and different types of things. So we're still going to be here, still going to be around. We're just going to be kind of revamping a little bit. Tonight, we're very lucky to have count them, four readers with us to celebrate the end of the year, solstice, and just to bring us some words tonight that will bring us some beauty and some things to think about. And I think, as you'll see as we go along too, we're going to see this very kind of accidental synchronicity between among these four poets. So we're going to get started. I am just trying to figure out my view, making sure I have the right view on for recording. Okay. So we're going to begin. We're going to go in alphabetical order because that's fair. So we are going to begin with Jordi Alonso, and I'm going to put his information in the chat. Jordi, I met, of course, like you meet most people these days, met first online, and then have had the pleasure to briefly kind of be with him in real life a couple of times at conferences. But he's one of the smartest people that I know. And I truly admire his passion, not only for poetry, but for the legacy of language. He studies classics and ancient Greek. And that's the history that has led us all to be writers and readers. And I love, there's one part of one of his poems I'm going to read to you because I think it is a good metaphor for the significance of a poem. This is from his poem, Fragment 88, I Will Love. I will love the orange blossoms brought here by merchants, the pepper's heat, an oil so strong for such a small black seed, showing passion and size. And I think that that's a perfect kind of description of a poem, an oil so strong for such a small black seed. And I know you're going to love Jordi's poems. Jordi, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Donna. I'm really excited to be here as part of the series. To close it out for the year feels really momentous, and I'm really excited to be reading with all these wonderful humans. I'm actually going to read that whole poem, Fragment 88, later. So if you don't know the whole poem, stay tuned and you will hear it soon. I'm going to start with a sonnet that led me to meet Katie a long, long time ago. I believe this may have been the only burrito sonnet she has ever published, but I may be wrong. So we'll let Katie tell me if I'm just making things up. This is Arcadia Revisited after Sir Philip Sidney. My true love has my heart, and I have his loyalty card to the burrito place where they all know my order and they miss me when I'm not on time to stuff my face. That's not to say that he took his heart back, and I did not. To have hearts is to waste valuable space for stomachs filled with guac. Love at first sight is cheap. Love at first taste is where the movies should be focusing, or on the matchmaker of tongues and hips, the checkout boy who salivates and rings me up and asks if I want chips. My true love has my heart, and I have his loyalty card to the burrito place. So following that, I'll be reading Ode to Tea. Y'all will notice that a lot of my poems have to do with food or poetry or both. That's just kind of some of the topics that keep circling around in my head. So this is Ode to Tea. Assured of your earthiness, by the cooing of the kettle, you steep silently, leaves arcing back to greet us in the morning. In Morocco, sweetened by hospitable hands, you forego cups and glide into glasses rimmed with mint and sugar. Taking a turn, Tibet blends you into butter, and so step steeped you fortify lamas and laymen alike. From builders' brews as thick and opaque as sunburned workers' palms while they retool masonry in Cornwall, to summer pomegranate blends, 6 sips will ward off winter in New York. Wanderer, worldly girl, travel in a thumb-latched tin, lose track of the tongues you tease and the thrumming throats you calm, kissing indiscriminately when decadence demands. This poem is, I believe, another Whale Road Review special here. This is Postcard to Summer. I will get back to the formal poetry, don't worry about this, but I figured free verse might need a turn here. And this is Postcard to Summer, since we are so close to the solstice. In another hemisphere, people are busy welcoming you back. The hills here wear mantles of snow. We fumble with coats and keep a naked hand in our pocket. For saying the icicles hanging above the awning were beautiful while I warmed myself by the smoldering wood stove, forgive me. I'm sorry for taking so long to get back to you. I had boots to wear and gloves to lose. So now I'm going to read a couple of poems from my first book, which is the book that Donna quoted from. This is Honey Voiced, which came out in 2015. It was basically my senior thesis as an undergraduate. And it is an exploration of Sappho, the Greek poet Sappho's poems as they might have sounded when they were complete, since they're all fragmented. So I'll be reading 2 poems from that collection. The first one is Fragment 20. To want a body next to mine in bed is to reason with the sea. We sailors cannot say where this wind will move us. We can only hope for land. Okay, I'm going to read fragment 88, which, if you were here when we started, Donna quoted from, and then I'm going to read a poem from another collection, and then a couple from a new project that is still in progress, sorry. Well, it's also in process, I suppose. This is fragment 88. I will love the orange blossoms brought here by merchants, the pepper's heat, an oil so strong for such a small black seed, showing passion in size, cardamom in goat's milk, boiled with honey, sweeter than wine, vine's plump grapes whose mild tang wakes up my tongue, less enticing things I will also love. Dark, fermented fish paste, bitter bark, rough cloth, bee stings, nettles, and hard beds. Because you felt them all once, I will love them. This, I suppose I should probably explain the project first. My good friend Phoebe Carter, who's a poet, translator, and illustrator, and I worked on a project together a few years ago. This is called the Lover's Phrase Book, published by Red Flag Poetry Press in 2017. And the idea for this collection was to create poems around words that don't exist in the English language. Long story short, we had so much fun coming up with this that we had a whole list of words that we didn't use for the first book for this chapbook. And then over the pandemic, when we couldn't travel and we were all stuck at home, we started sort of coming up with a new project, which is sort of like a spiritual successor to this book, where all the words are associated with travel. So we were a bit masochistic there because we were like, let's figure out how we can travel without leaving our houses. Since we are pretty close to the new year, I figured I would read Poltach from this collection. So I don't know how well you can see it, but it's illustrated. Phoebe had oil pastel drawings for each one of these poems. And like I said, they're all titled after a particular word in a language that does not have a direct correspondence into English. So this is Quoltach from the Manx Gaelic, and it's a noun. It means the first person one sees after New Year's or a significant event. The new year finds me in the arms of a bubbly lover whom I was too eager to kiss last night. Winterlight weans us of excesses, and in its gray haze we retreat to the single syllables of necessity which will keep us warm. Hat, gloves, scarf, dates, tea, you. What am I doing on time here? Finally, to close off, I'm going to read two more poems. One is from this new project, like I mentioned, and then I'm going to end with another imitation of a 16th century poet, because that seems to be a project that is also happening in my head. This from the new collection is called Al-Atlal. It's from the Arabic, a noun meaning the remains or traces of an abandoned encampment, often appearing in Arabic poetry when the poet returns to the site to mourn the loss or departure of a loved one. Let's chill and cry a bit. A crumpled t-shirt, a size too large, with a logo from a university 300 miles away at the foot of the bed. An upturned mug with traces of flour by a heap of vanilla scones stacked like a cairn on a baking sheet on the countertop. A torn page with a messy heart in black ink. I really like you. Thanks for the scones. And finally, I'm going to end my portion of the reading with Andrew Marvell Goes to Williams-Sonoma. So this is Andrew Marvell Goes to Williams-Sonoma, after to his coy mistress. Had I but world enough and time, and leisure too to pass the time while buying, I would window shop the newest pans, the freshest crop of lavender from France, flown in last night, would fuel my only sin. Extravagance in cooking makes for novel drinks and tastier cakes. I'd, by the checkout counter, find a tool to grate an orange rind in record time. And then I'd see a new Sonoma coupon. Free cocktail shaker when you spend this much before October ends. I knew I had to have it. Hell, 20% off mint as well. Had I but whirled enough and time. Some Brussels sprouts, white truffle oil to fry, saute, or just to boil, and drizzle on some haute cuisine, respectively. Vanilla beans, they're rare from Madagascar and would go quite well in next week's flan. Love, if you would, sorry, love, you should, if you please, refuse until I've found us some chartreuse. Those lonely poets long ago could never say what we all know they should. It's better to be clear when one would like to cuddle near a fireplace, or, if that's not the style, to go for it just to pass a while. If you love veggies, then I know of a cute garden we could grow some carrots in. If you like chard, come dig some furrows in my yard. If it is true all you have eyes for is fresh bread, I too will rise. Oh, finally, lest I forget and have my silence to regret, do let me know if you like dill when you come to my place to chill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordy. Delightful reading. I'm so happy that you were with us this evening to share your work. Please make sure that you check out both of Jordy's books, and we'll be looking forward to those new projects soon.
Thank you.
Our next reader is going to be Ariana Benson. I had the great pleasure to meet and work with Ariana when I was an editor at Rhino. And I was so honored to learn from her close reads of submissions during our editorial discussions. Another person who is just so smart. And her poems, especially her poems in her book, which just came out recently, Black Pastoral, reclaim the pastoral as a legacy and as a type of resistance. I'm sure she's going to read this poem tonight, but I am going to read a couple lines from it anyway, because I think it's a perfect example of the way she marries natural and pastoral images with a deeper resonance of community. So from the poem, Black Pastoral, this is toward the end of the poem, I believe. A rusted tree, a feigning rodent's drooping tongue, a deer's shed velvet, a black boy's garnet-gummed grin. None of these are wet with death's jaded red. Who would muddy these budding strokes with pigment too dense for the canvas? You're going to hear some beautiful work from Ariana Benson.
Oh, thank you so much, Donna. It was an honor to learn from you and the whole crash. Rhino, I will always say, is my first poetry home. I was a baby poet. I hadn't found any community yet, and to just learn from you all, to hear you all read poems with such care and interest and passion, taught me so much about close reading, about looking at the page, and really helped me grow as a poet. So I thank you so much, and thank you for having me with this wonderful series. So yes, I will be reading a few poems from my debut collection, Black Pastoral. My reading copy is all beat up, but I love to show the cover because it's gorgeous, and each one of the flowers on the cover is a hand blown glass orchid, which I just think is phenomenal. Um, so I figure, towards the end of the year, we're all kind of reflecting on vastness, right? We're trying to understand scale, like we've just done a year of living, and yet it can feel so small at times too. So I kind of wanted to read a few poems that maybe use landscape to think about vastness, to think about new worlds, new possibilities. And then I'm also going to read some new poems that I haven't read yet. But we'll start with On Mars. 1. I was never much one for astronomy. My basic grasp of the universe and its terrifying contents satisfied me most of my life. Pluto was a planet, then wasn't, then was again, I think. I didn't go outside to witness the eclipse because I've spent too many moons waiting for obstacles to pass between my world and its light, for celestial corpses to align. To deem them bodies implies life, and humans have long known Earth only as a ghost. But when I see that water has been found on Mars, I feel a knot that my heart urges my tongue to curl into hope. I see life blossoming, bundles of cells that compose bodies instead of confining them. I see babies, tiny feet splashing in puddles from which their very existence sprung. I see water on Mars and know my children must never call home by any other name. 2. Our backyard awash in desert rust. We'll fashion palaces from red sand, all while sipping tea sweetened with spoonfuls of stardust. When winter rains turn craters into ponds, we'll skate atop their frosted faces, and in summer lays in their cooled relief from the heat, the natal knowledge of how to swim, having never fled a single child's mind. They'll have a galaxy of nebulae to nightly gaze upon, hair bathed in cool slate, absent white hot sun. Gravity and alien bondage, they'll play ball, palm entire planets, bound through the asteroid belt, swing from Saturn's rings with their fingertips, astral amphibians, they'll breathe, purified pink sky through their skin. Not a single gas will escape their grip. 3. On Mars, there are no guns. What good are bullets that can be batted down like balloons bleeding air? My children will thrive. They'll climb mountains only to leap fearless from the peaks and drift back to Mars, serene like leaves in a crisp autumn breeze, colorful and bright and beautiful and whole. They will have all of outer space to reach their true peaks and drift back to me, colorful, bright, beautiful, whole. This next poem is a bit in conversation with the project that Jordy talked about with the words that we don't have a word for in the English language. So the poem takes inspiration from a word that's in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which, I mean, as a poet, obviously, I have to like read this whole book and understand every obscure sorrow, right? It's natural. And so this one is, the obscure sorrow I've chosen for this poem is anemoia, which is nostalgia for a time you've never known. And this poem is Sweet Field Anemoia. There was, at one time, an empty field. I'm sure of it. Or was it a forest so jade that a vine snake's darting left only glare like light breaking over rolling grain? No, I know there was a field because I miss it. Its brush languid as a forest slinking into jaded slumber, dragging floor dwellers at its outskirts like a tool train, the land trodden by what once bent its grasses with breath. God, what we could do without yesterday, its forested jaundice, its sepia fog. With the prologue we ourselves sowed, a terrain thick with memory of unbodied lush. Florid, a forest stalks, weeping, it shone like jade in the easy sun. Yes, there was warmth, sugarcane, a sweetness, or even just its thick simulacra. It whispered like sound in an adjacent forest, an aria unflattened by my failure to prove it real. Believe me, I'm sane, I swear. I remember the pasture, the soft sickle of a new leaf. Each shoot its own forest with only jaybirds and lacebugs coming between stems and their rain. Listen, I know this field. It never held a soul. No tree bark backs. No forest of bowed limbs, no blue jaws, no ambered over sores, only green thoughts, only the mundane. The last one from Black Pastoral will be the title poem that Donna read, that I think is the winteriest poem in this book. This is a pretty springy, summery book, I would say. So yes, I'll try to give us a little bit of a winter vibe, and then I'll move on to some new work. Black Pastoral. There is a kind of poetry in a turning that leaves a body redder than before. Golden drupes ripen, orchards flush rouge. Sweetness curls the blades of leaves that once sprouted green. Fall confetti rains red herrings in pretend surrender. showers of bleeding white flags. Yes, even the trees play possum when a cold force looms larger than they. They freeze, mine stone from wood, statue themselves like deer. Enter the fledgling buck. See him, just barely, a tawny smudge blinking back at you through the landscape's static, his molting crown, one shredded antler a tree in its own visceral autumn, the other a felled trunk at rest in the ashen grass. Enter the black boy. See his boots leave little coffin prints on the ground, what lingers in the foam of his wake. They stand together, this boy, this deer, each a lone solstice removed from fawnhood, from his spring pink and summer blushed self, the memories of whom live only in the glossy black of the other's eyes. They reminisce for a moment in unblinking silence. Then see the boy's tiny hands, dotted with birch knot knuckles, his womb-smooth palms split along umber fault lines as they meet to cradle the lost horn and turn it upright in the frost, making sapling of skeleton. Now hear a distant whistling, a herd of cocked rods dragging like fingernails over the shivering ground, its goose-bumped skin. See our subjects assume the position of hibernation, of stagnant and threatless sleep, praying they will awaken when the white recedes. They learned, in leaving the red of their mothers, the danger of hound-snouted men who, upon encountering a creature dark with life, ponder the taste of metal-peppered flesh. They know to freeze, to still their limbs, to wait for the melt, for the trees to weep the winter out, the silent sobs a prelude to the red, not of end, but of moss, of possibility. Just two more poems, just two more. Encounter. Not cotton, but the snow that resembled it piling up in bald fists on the dead branches. Not the music, worldly, natural, the soundtrack itself, but the way everything melted around it, down to its earthly elements, the way a hand, a structured thing, becomes all skin and ridge against the heat of a thigh, becomes just color, just dark against light, just history. Yes, we were heat until we let ourselves be more than the past's holding our invisible strings, or maybe less, since this, what is it, brokenness we seem bound by, bound to, makes everything around us not itself. The fog crowding the clear glass, the black hide peeling away from the gear shift, scratches on the body of the car left by the lonely switches, which are just branches until someone decides to give them purpose, call them by another name, make worldly a natural thing, not snow, cotton, not music, song. That was one of the new ones, I should say. And then the last one, this one comes from an obsession of mine. I feel like poetry is an art of obsession, and one of my obsessions is Bob Ross. I love his painting. I love the way that he just does it with joy. I love that everything is a happy little tree and that there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. So dedicated to Bob Ross. Pastoral in the mode of Bob Ross. Like God, we begin with the heavens. Dip our brush in the lightest colors, let the darker hues run down toward our blanched canvas ground. A simple scene, alizarin crimson, bit of pink to blush the sky's cheeks, then phthalo blue, barely bristle-tapped clouds. Note, everything here is happy, little, or both. Even bodies of water sit still, peace unruptured by breath-bearing life. Trees born black morph into remnants of shadow and accented lavender. Any fruit here that manages to grow by imprecise stroke or errant color we'll call uncanny. Yes, that sounds better than strange. Take a bit of liquid white and blur the scene. What is the wind if not divine desire callousing the smooth palm of your field? Curse even the smallest chaos, forget it exists only because you conjured it. Man here is as it should be, at most implied, by the presence of a dilapidated cabin, a barn where your invisible creatures keep their own unruly beasts locked away behind a red cave under a tin roof. You must say it. Beautiful. It can't be true until the Creator deems it so, owns it, as would the kind of God that creating such a world can warp the human mind into. What wanders below won't understand, but you are above, and so know everything in a landscape belongs to beauty, never the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those beautiful poems. It really is a beautiful book. If you couldn't tell from those poems, I think you probably could, both on the cover and on the inside. So I highly recommend it to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We had a little bit of a scheduling issues earlier this year, so I'm happy that we finally got you here tonight. Thank you again. Next reader is going to be Katie Manning. Katie is one of the kindest and most delightful people that I have the pleasure to know, both in the poetry world, and even if she wasn't a poet, she'd still be one of the kindest and most delightful people I have the pleasure to know. And to me, reading Katie's poems is akin to having a good, strong friend. You can laugh with them, you can cry with them. They challenge you to think, and they sit with you to reflect on both the joy and the pain in everyday life, whether she is erasing the Bible, as in her latest book, Irreverent, or memorializing her grandmother, or talking to Jesus in a coffee shop, or thirsting after Jeff Goldblum in a dinosaur poem. All of Katie's poems make me feel something. And usually that something is admiration or joy or a real something. And Katie is the same way when you're with her in person. So I can't wait for you to hear Katie Manning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to call you the next time I'm feeling bad about myself and ask you to just tell me good things about myself. Thank you very much. Jordy and Ariana, it was amazing to hear both of you. I feel so honored to get to be here with you both, and can't wait to hear Philip as well. I am going to start with my book that is Erasing the Bible, as Donna said. And I picked out the poems that felt wintry. So I was trying to give us a little bit of winter. I'm in San Diego, so I have to generate my own sense of winter. We can tell it's winter here, but other people visiting can't. So we just have to make it ourselves. This project began because I was tired of people taking language from the Bible out of context and using it as a weapon against other people. So it's kind of my protest art, taking the last book of each Bible as a word bank and creating poems from those word banks. So first I'll read the book of Verbs, which comes from Proverbs. Listen, my womb. Do not spend your strength on kings. It is not for kings. Crave and let be. Bring life like food is food. Consider a field and plant strong fingers. Open hands when it snows. Make days. Watch. Do not eat praises. The Book of Ice. I think this one's Zechariah. The Book of Ice. A day is coming when you will fight against the Lord, fight against his feet and flee. Flee as you fled the holy sunlight in frosty darkness. Living winter will become the plague. Flesh will rot on their feet. Eyes will rot in their mouths. No rain, no rain. Do not celebrate the punishment. Do not celebrate will be inscribed on the bells of the horses. That one got kind of dark. Some of these are really funny and weird, and they all are kind of weird, but it was weird to me when I was working on these because I started the project feeling really angry. And then the more that I wrote, and when I started bringing these to my writing group, they kept laughing when they read the poems. And I was like, no, these are angry poems. But then a bunch of them were like, yeah, kind of, I don't know. They kept making them laugh, so whatever. This is the Book of Thirst. To love is to fear my own hand. What if love should make only a passing visit, as the winter does? Love is a great door that may return a kiss. I don't like being cold, so I think the winter ones are not funny. And the last one I'll read from this book is the Book of Moot. Who will judge the dead God in view of his living? The Lord loved this world, but he has deserted me like a drink. A great number of itching ears want to hear myths from the lion's mouth, but they turn their ears away from every sound. Come to me quickly, Lord. Best to get here before winter. So next in my variety show tonight, I'm going to read a couple of poems from my chapbook, How to Play. It's the most recent one of the chapbooks that was published in 2022 with Louisiana Literature Press, which is great. And I decided tonight that I am going to try to read you some poems kind of about and to my granny. And the anniversary of her passing is this Saturday. And so I've been feeling that coming. And it's really, it's a hard anniversary. She was my other mother and my dear friend, probably my therapist, the person I called the most frequently. She was very, very dear to me. And so I think I can read you these poems, but if it becomes clear to me that I can't, I'm going to pivot and read you some other stuff. So this chapbook actually has a bunch of different poems. There's some to my spouse and some to my kids. They're all poems that are based on, well, not based, but yeah, based on. They all come from games, tabletop games, board games, card games, any kind of game. As you can see from the cover, there's this knolling photography of all these game pieces. I love the cover very much. I got to do it collaboratively. I worked on it with a photographer and it was great. So I'm going to read you the two in this collection that are for my granny, who played a lot of games with me when I was young. How to Play Yahtzee with a Ghost. Invite your granny to the dining table. Set the red box beside her reading glasses. Tear off 2 score sheets and take out 2 pencils. Muffle the crashing cubes by taping a paper towel to the inside of the plastic cup. Roll the dice into the box lid to keep them from falling to the floor. Brew some coffee just for the scent. The dishwasher should be running. Watch the straight line of your granny's mouth, the quick scoop of unwanted numbers in her thin hand. Mistake the shushed shake of the cup for her whisper, I love. Hold on to the box lid to keep from falling to the floor. You always let me win at Candyland. I never knew you were cheating, but Mom said you were going to make me a bad sport. If you could speak now, what would you say? I just loved to see you happy. No, you'd still say love, present, cigarettes and coffee on your breath. And you'd play love so I would be the one to find it, like our favorite card, the layered ice cream bar that never melts. And then I'm going to read a few poems from 28,065 Nights. And this is the chapbook that I wrote about and to my granny after she passed away. And these are all prose poems. And I think this project started very much as a private project. I wasn't sure I was going to share these very publicly. And then I did kind of start to share them a little bit, and it became clear that they were readable by other people, and they were actually quite, people were connecting with them quite a bit. So this project is really, I think, about storytelling and the way that stories can connect us with each other, maybe more than any other thing, maybe more than genetics or anything else that we feel like connects us. I think it might be stories. 28,065 is the number of nights that my granny was alive. So I'll just read a few of these. The first day of our second year without you. We visited your grave on Christmas Eve. Elliot helped me find you like we were playing hide and seek. Is Granny over here? No. Is Granny over there? We found you surrounded by poinsettias and candy canes. Elliot picked up a small branch and traced your last name on the headstone, slowly announcing each letter. At age 3, he believes that you're dead like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. He tells me you woke up in heaven and you live there now, but you will come back. When I am really, really old, he says daily now, I will go to heaven. Sometimes he adds, Mommy, I don't want to go to heaven. I was afraid it would be empty. Do you remember the notebook I gave you as a Mother's Day gift 4 years ago? I asked you to write to me about your life, how you didn't learn about periods until you thought your sister was bleeding to death, how you snuck out with Grandpa for a carnival date. You are one of the few people I could sit with for hours on a couch, TV off, only our stories between us. When we knew you were close to death, I thought about asking if you'd written in the notebook for me, but I didn't ask. I didn't want you to feel guilty if you hadn't found the time or the words to write. When we went through your bedroom after Christmas, I found the notebook in your dresser drawer. I opened it quickly. It was blank, but there was a jagged edge in front. The first page was torn away. Can't turn my page. Okay. I'm gonna skip to this one. When I was very small, I think I was 4 when I became obsessed with the movie Labyrinth. Have you all seen Labyrinth? If you haven't, that's your assignment. Go watch it. David Bowie. It's important for your life. This is, which way do you want to go? I ask this question more than you might think, mustering my best Muppet voice. And now my 4-year-old watches Labyrinth as I did at his age, and I am becoming you, shuffling around the kitchen in the same style of open-toed house slippers that you always wore, baking chocolate rolls or biscuits. Yes, which way? The blue hands insist on an answer. Sometimes I look down at my hands and see yours kneading the dough. I would choose this if I had a choice. And then I'm going to read one more poem from this collection, and then I'll read you one new one. This is the title poem, 28,065 Nights. I tell your stories to keep myself alive. I tell you new stories. I speak them aloud to you when no one is around, the way you used to talk to Grandpa in your bedroom after his death. The stories play on repeat in my head. I write them down. I tell them to Elliot when he asks. A year later, he still remembered you, but I don't know how long his memories from 2 will last. To him, you will be more story than person. Are we always more story than person? Words thicker than water? I got the wave of your hair and your lack of wisdom teeth. I did not get your metabolism that let you eat 6 hot dogs at one cookout, but I get to keep that story, more necessary now than blood or breath. And I'm going to close with a new prose poem that felt appropriate to read to you right before Christmas. This is Rare Jurassic Era Bug Found at Arkansas Walmart. When I was in middle school, I was hot with shame about shopping for clothes at Walmart with my family. I made sure to keep as much material as possible between me and the people walking by, and I avoided the aisle racks altogether. At least the clearance racks were usually in the back. It's a wonder I saw the clothes at all. It took me a long time to realize anyone who saw me was also shopping at Walmart. When I was in middle school, I also went to Arkansas from Arizona for a family reunion, and I was mesmerized by the very drunk man who looked just like Santa Claus and was singing and playing a banjo. "That's your grandpa's brother," my mom said when I asked how we were related, and I felt something in me like a seesaw, balanced, hovering. I decided to tip toward pride and tell this story with delight. Now I've learned that a rare Jurassic era bug has been hanging out at an Arkansas Walmart, a perfect place for a large showy insect to hide undetected. This bug predates the dinosaurs, but mysteriously disappeared from around there 70 years ago. Giant lacewing, Polysticotus punctata. I feel more punk by proximity to your name. And hey, do you like my jeans? They're my favorite. I got them on sale at Walmart. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Delightful. See, what did I tell all of you? I'm always smiling and feeling things when you read your poems. And thank you so much for sharing those granny poems. I know how hard that is to do, and they're really beautiful. I just feel like this time is flying by. We're going on to our last reader. Phil Memmer. Phil is the only person on this agenda tonight who I haven't had the pleasure to meet before. But wait, you'll see when I drop in the chat, has a broad, impressive resume of publication. And I'm also really enamored with his broad range of interest and content in the poems that I've read. I really enjoy in Phil's poems the fact that they're sometimes a very big topics, maybe spirituality or God or mythological figures in some of his work, but there are also always really beautiful small moments in his poems. And I was speaking about this earlier before everybody was here, but there's this very nice kind of accidental kinship on having Phil read with these other three poets tonight because of his images, which are very attuned to the natural world, his interest in spirituality and the Bible and in ancient stories. It's kind of like he was the perfect icing on the cake tonight to kind of finish off everything that we've heard. One of the poems of his that I did that I found that I really was intrigued by is, again, I think like a really apt line to think about is what's going on now. It's from a poem called "How Many Shapes Must a God Take?" Which is from Exodus 3, verses 2 through 4. And at the end of the poem, we hear God speaking, "In my despair, I ripped out my 100 arms, tore off my 1,000 masks, let cool my fires beyond counting. I came to you as darkness and silence, and you, so enamored of absence, now you see me. Now, at last, you hear." And now we're going to hear from Phil.
Donna, thanks so much. I'm glad I didn't pick that one to read tonight. And what a great night of poetry. Wow. I was unfamiliar with all three of our poets before this evening, though I'd heard of everybody, but hadn't, ever had the chance to hear you before. And what a great night it's been. And yeah, it's gone by real fast. So I'm going to start off with an old one that Katie's reading put me in mind of, actually. And then I'm going to go to some brand new stuff that is still rather drafty, which I don't normally do at a reading, but I thought I would. And then I'm going to read from my most recent book, Cairns, for the remainder of my time. So this is a poem from a book called The Storehouses of the Snow, Psalms, Parables, and Dreams, and it's called Parable. There was a street, and upon it stood 3 vacant houses, and beside them no others, a neighborhood long abandoned. And so one night came thieves, 3 of them. Into the first house the first thief crept, breaking the dirty glass of a cellar window. But there he found no gold, and so empty-handed he left, and never returned. And then at the second house, the second thief, knowing no one would hear, drilled out the lock of a side door, but finding there neither silver nor jewels, he too left and did not come back. And so it was the third thief approached the third house. But unlike the others, he broke no glass, destroyed no lock. He simply walked right in. The threshold, like both the others, had long stood open. For a while he explored the rooms, then slept on the floor. At daybreak he tidied the lawn and planted the garden. At noon he mopped the shower and oiled the doors. And then as the day ended, he took some paint to the mailbox and wrote his name. And like this man, and though you will always be a thief in your heart, you must find the kingdom empty, then make it yours. So this new little project I'm working on is all in the, well, it's not all going to be in the voice of the character Charon from Greek mythology, but Charon the boatman who takes people from this world to the next is the focal character. There's some other folks floating around in the project. I'm just going to read a couple of these little quick, teeny little poems. And as I said, they're really drafty, but I kind of wanted to hear them out loud and see what happened. So I'm going to read a couple of them and then move on to Cairns. And the basic premise of the book is that what would happen if Charon's had enough? I'm not going to, not today. Let the dead stay shuffling on the dusky bank. Let the boat leak slow in the black shallows. Let the shallows dry up, the oars crack, the ridiculous life vests hang forever, unused on their rusted hook. One last bit of color for whoever looks. Faded, yes, like everything here. But color, I guess, if that still matters to you. This one girl, I don't know what you did to her. She seemed so relieved, as if never once in your air had she taken a real breath. Unbelievable here on this stifling shore. And as her bruises faded, she ran to the dock with water skis. Never once in your air that sound, as I slammed the speedboat's throttle, and she laughed and laughed and vanished and laughed and laughed. There never was a fare, no fee. You've already paid everything you had. So enough with the coins on your tongues and on your eyes. Where exactly would I spend them, and on what? The ticket you were born holding is still right there in your fist. Why do you think I'd sell you the one thing you've always owned? So that's a little taste of Charon. He won't be here for a long time. He's got some time to go. So this little book, Cairns, you can see how, hopefully you can see how tiny it is. I don't know what the exact dimensions are. It's like 4 by 5.5 or 6 or something. You can put it in a generous back jeans pocket. This book will fit in, which is important because the poems are all really teensy. It is a version of the Sisyphus story. And I'm just going to read straight through, just like I did with those last ones. They're sort of companion pieces, or will be when the other is done. But these are even shorter than those. And there's a whole lot of them here in the book. There's also great artwork from a wonderful Syracuse artist, John Fitzsimmons, who did a series of etchings for the book that are scattered throughout. So here we go, some excerpts from Cairns. Yeah, Katie, you're right. The constant dilemma of the pockets. In recognition of my life, the gods provided me in death this mountain, this stone. And forever, we all get that. But what good would forever be without a mountain, a stone? Sisyphus, the stone whispers, are you awake? All day its weight tears my limbs. All night it whimpers in my ear, so that if I dream of the sorrows of stones. No, I say, I'm sleeping. When I despair, the stone reminds me how once this path was flat, a blackened plain, how someone spent their own sad forever to build rock on rock this peak. That was me, I remind the stone. Sisyphus asks the stone, are you awake? I dreamt, I say, that I pushed a stone up a mountain. I hope I wasn't heavy, the stone replies. It wasn't you, I say. It was some other stone. My fate, some say, is an absurdity. Well, whose isn't? In the ski lift chairs above me, perdition's couples always learn too late they hate each other. There is no snow. They have no skis. The holidays come. The charred trees are choked with lights, and for a little while, hell's deep bells are tuned a few notes higher. Soon I'll start my climb like I always do, but drunk, the stone festooned with bows. Are you as intimate with anything as I am with this rock? With whom have you ever walked as we have walked? When you don't talk, who hears you? Whose resounding silence echoes your thoughts? One day, we agreed, just for a change, that I would climb the mountain on my own, and the stone would do some stone stuff on the ground. Then, without a thought, I bent down just like always to lift the stone. Atop the mountain, the gift shop and scenic car park are packed as always. Kids bicker, parents curse flat tires. The stone falls. We all stare. I still can't tell whether they're in my hell or I'm in theirs. Flowers rise through the flames, stems scorched, parched lips open. As if even flowers sin and must atone. even bees. One sip at a blossom's scalding well, and they flare like matches. All things have a hell. Sometimes, however strong I feel, the stone won't budge. Never mind that the gods demand this labor. Never mind ages of the same blunt shove, the same hard shouldering. The stone won't sometimes. Just won't. Sisyphus, the stone asks, are you awake? We need to talk, it continues, about tomorrow. There's no tomorrow, I say, just more todays. In that case, the stone says, let's talk about today. Sometimes, in hell's pale sham of a dawn, I stare a long while at the stone. The stone, too, stares at me. We turn away from each other. We sit. Hours pass. These days, more than most, I know I am damned. I watch it some days, knowing why it fell. My will was weak, my knees bent back, my damned arm broke. You were lazy, I scold myself. You were small. Most days, though, the stone falls because the stone falls. Sisyphus asks the stone, what is my name? How bare then my bloody hands seem, how stifling the air, how high the mountain, how heavy, heavy my companion. Stone, I answer. Your name is Stone. So that's a taste of Cairns. And I'm going to finish up with one more poem from this book, The Storehouses of the Snow. And we'll do this one. So as you heard in the parable, the first poem I read, like this book uses biblical rhetorical forms mostly. And so this is one of the Psalms. It isn't much, Father, I know, but I made for you a sweater. I hope you like it. It took a long while, since before I started to be honest, I'd never knitted. And also, I had no pattern, nor a clear idea what you might like, and not one clue how large to make it, or how many sleeves you might need, or whether the mind that created the world might crave a hood. Yarn choice also was a puzzle. At first, I considered wool, but worried lamb might seem too clever. Cotton I rejected next, too common, and then alpaca, too rustic, and last, too presumptuous, all synthetic threads. Neither was I quite confident as to your affection for buttons or zippers or snaps or drawstrings or a simple pullover with a V-neck to symbolize the victory of your infinite love, which you'll notice I have labored to represent here on the chest. Look, here we march, your faithful, in armor, on horseback. And there in their city our enemy cowers, knowing you will smite them, for now too late they see in your left fist a plague of hail, and in your right a plague of boils, and here, down by the waist, the fires of hell. Oh, how they wept when we burst through the walls. Obviously, you remember that day, for you blessed us and gave to us in your triumph their fine gold hair that I might weave, and their blood so that I might die, and their houses that I might take timbers to build a loom, though most we burned. And while many also were killed among the righteous, see them here in the kingdom singing on the sleeve. Their joy was complete if their dying contributed to this, with its stripe of ashes, its catches of bone. Please, in remembrance of their devotion and my love for all your creation, do try it on. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Phil. Wow, what a wonderful evening. The synchronicity between the four of you was something to behold, the way your poems all melded together. Thank you so much to the audience for being here for our last reading of the year. We will continue the reading series. I always say we like the royal we. It's me. I'm the only one doing it. We continue in 2024 with a slightly different format. We'll have 4 readings per year, but in between some other content, some interviews, as Judy mentioned when she came on, some workshops, generative workshops, something a little bit different so that it's not just a reading every month, and hopefully get a good audience to come. Thank you so much for being here tonight, all of you that are here. Thank you so much to all 4 of our readers. You were absolutely wonderful, as I knew you would be. There will be a recording of the reading up on YouTube, either later this evening or tomorrow morning, and I will send that to all the readers, and for everyone else, you can just search HPH Reading Series on YouTube and find us there on social media. So I will I'm going to stop the recording and wish all of you a good night and a wonderful solstice. And if you celebrate holidays around this time of year, happy holidays, and hope to see you at more events in 2024. Let me stop the recording, and we'll have a chance to use the chat and say good night there.